Hello and welcome to this episode of Statistically Speaking. The Oxford Union, the debating society of Oxford University, took to Instagram to announce that it will be hosting a debate titled, quote, I'm quoting here, "This House believes in the independent state of Kashmir." This move has witnessed widespread condemnation. It has been seen as a blatant interference in India's internal affairs and a disregard for its sovereignty. Indian students staged a protest against the discussion, featuring Muzammal Ayub Thakur and Zafar Khan, who both have links to the Pakistani ISI. NewsX has now conducted a survey with the people to understand their pulse of whether it was right on the part of the university to hold a debate on the independence of Kashmir. We have also asked whether India should in turn host a debate on the independence of Northern Ireland, and these are the results that we have received. Question number 1, that Statistically Speaking asked to the people: do you think it is right for Oxford University to be debating the independence of Kashmir? 34% people say yes, 60% people say no. Majority of the people agree that it's not right for Oxford University to be holding this debate. Question number 2, should Indians in turn debate the independence of Northern Ireland? 36% people said yes, 63% people said no. So while they do agree that Oxford Union should not have held this debate, they don't believe that Indians should go for a tit-for-tat approach and debate or discuss the independence of Northern Ireland from the UK. Question number 3. Do you support the people of Northern Ireland in the demand for independence from the UK? To this, 65% people, the majority said yes, only 33% said no. Question number 4. Do you support the people of Scotland in the demand for independence from the UK? Once again, 65% people say yes, 27% people said no. And last question that we put forward to the people: should the Indian government give moral and diplomatic support to the Free Northern Ireland movement? 69% of the voters have said yes, the Indian government should. Only 27% people have said no. So these are the big questions that we put forward. I take this discussion ahead with Ambassador Basudhi Mukherjee. We have Sumit Peer, political commentator, Rashmi Sawant, she's the former president of, at the University of Oxford, and Professor Madhav Nalapa, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Let me begin with Ambassador Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, your thoughts, ma'am, on the fact that, of course, our voters did say that they don't agree with the UK or any university they're debating the independence of Kashmir, but at the same time, they don't feel India should follow any sort of tit-for-tat approach and debate the independence of Northern Ireland or Scotland.
But Devika, I have participated in several debates in different TV channels on this matter, and what I have consistently said is the following. Number 1, this debate has been organized by the president of the Oxford Students' Union, who is a Pakistani with ISI links. This debate has been sought to be justified by a few Brits, not all, on the basis of freedom of speech, and they have been forced to retract their statement and agree that it falls outside the ambit of freedom of speech, because every freedom comes with responsibility, and the interference, the blatant interference, that too in a university that has produced large number of colonial British prime ministers while we were under colonial rule, is not at all appropriate for the reputation of Oxford University. Thirdly, I agree with those who don't believe in tit for tat. I would much rather, as I suggested in some other channels, suggest that, for instance, in Delhi University, which is my alma mater, for instance, we debate that the white man's colonialism is the black man's burden. Yes or no? Wonderful topic for a debate. Secondly, apartheid imposed by the whites on South Africa is a crime against humanity. Number 3, colonial excesses in India, including Jallianwala Bagh, should be accompanied by an apology from the British monarch and the British Prime Minister. Let's debate. I would prefer those kind of debates, not freedom for Northern Ireland. But we should look into our history, see what the Brits have done, see how they've drawn up, for instance, the Afghan frontier, the Afghan India, undivided India frontier, by just letting a horse loose. And where the horse went, the border was divided. In other words, complete disrespect for the people who live there. They did the same thing for the Sino-Indian border, and they have done the same all over Africa. So I would much rather debate the history of colonialism in Indian universities. We have first class debaters. I was a debater myself. We debate it here and we make it public on social media. Why do we need to think of Oxford University? In any case, Oxford University has fallen in reputation. It can't compete anymore. The United Kingdom is a second-rate country. Its GDP is far behind us. They desperately need an FTA with us. They want to do business with us. They better behave themselves. The Indians are the largest buyers of real estate in London, along with the Russians. And chicken tikka masala is the established food in the Brits in UK because the Brits have no cuisine of their own.
Yes.
Why do we need to even think about these issues? We should just ignore it, get some really good debates going on in our universities and make them public. And if you need any help in selecting topics, call me one-to-one. I can give you 10 topics that we can debate. Thank you, Dev.
Rashmi Sawant, bringing you into the conversation. Rashmi, but then what do you think keeps some of the Indian universities from implementing suggestions that have been made by Ambassador Mukherjee, which of course have been made for a very long time now? You know, it's not necessary for us to only discuss the independence of Ireland or the independence of Scotland. What keeps our universities from having or becoming hubs of intellectual discussions, as the Oxford Union really prides itself, to be?
You're on mute, Rashmi.
Rashmi, you're muted. If you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah. Firstly, I completely agree with Ambassador Mukherjee with the, kind of debates that we need to have on our universities. But I think the sort of impediment to these things come from the largely westernized outlook towards education, the colonial construct that still dictates a large part of how education, really is in Bharat. And the top-down pyramid approach, wherein everything that happens in most subjects are somehow taken from these universities, which are ranked 1 to 100 by institutions established by the West. So I think there's a necessity for us to look within and stop looking towards the West. Even if you look at the sort of activism that happens on campus, it's very intersectional in nature. And very often our campuses end up seeking justice for injustices that are not even happening in India. During the whole Black Lives Matter movement, we could see a lot of young people, supporting the Indian cricket team, taking the knee for the, Black Lives Matter in the United States, instead of, urging them to perhaps utilize their platform for Kashmiri Hindu Pandits, so on and so forth. So I think there is a largely colonial mindset that still persists in certain sections of society, largely supported by the sort of old education system, which is continuing till date, and the sort of Western outlook, which does exist in some echelons. But that being said, I think change is surely coming. And of late, we see more debate, more discussion, and more protest to the sort of Western hegemony being practiced here. And I think the change is here, and it's going to stay. At the same time, with respect to what the Oxford Union did, I think there's, a deeper aspect to the fact that the president of the union currently is of Pakistani origin, and calling people from Pakistan, people of Pakistani origin with ties to the ISI, etc. It reeks of more than just a university trying to, hold a, debate in the spirit of free speech. It also reeks of, some sort of interference by a foreign regime using
Yes.
Universities, think tanks, etc. So it reeks of that kind of interference, of that kind of manipulation, to influence a broader narrative on an ongoing geopolitical issue. So I think that also needs to be countered, and I was extremely proud of the Indian students at Oxford for actually standing up against all of these things. And the vice president of the Oxford Union, who happened to be of Indian origin, actually resigned and protested the kind of bullying and harassment that most Indians and he faced during his tenure as vice president by the president, etc.
Yes.
So that kind of change is happening. And whilst I was on campus back in 2020, 2021, you wouldn't see this kind of change. You wouldn't see this kind of protest. Back in 2020 as well, Indian students were served beef gelatin as part of the Diwali dinner and nobody said anything. This
Yes.
time as well, they did something similar. It was not beef gelatin, but they tried to have an Urduized, approach to Diwali to remove any Indian sort of cultural value from it. And it was protested. So I think Indians, really, the diaspora is also waking up and really registering its protest.
Yes.
And such events will not continue unabated, unchallenged. And I'm truly happy that such separatist agendas are now bringing the diaspora closer than, back in the day it would
Yes.
divide us. But today it brings us closer. It brings in solidarity, and it's truly building us as a community. And it's heartening to see that.
Okay, I want to bring in Sumit on that note. Sumit, I want to understand from you, why exactly do you think that then a university like Oxford is sort of able to, in a way, abuse its own, its self-conception that this is an intellectual debate, it's for students, and because it's a university campus, so we can go ahead and debate whatever we want. How is it that they are able to sort of abuse that position despite a strong objection and protest, which is not being raised for the first time, but for multiple times? There have been people from India who've posted on social media their rejection letters, literally, when they were called for this debate. So why is this insistence that we will still go ahead because, hey, we're a university campus?
Devgaji, thank you for having me on your show. Ma'am, if you look into it, there is called as a cause and effect. What we are looking as is the effect, but we are not getting into the cause. Look, every university, every Ivy League university, every prestigious university in the world, say top 100, as per the ranking available and what the world agrees today, is being infiltrated. There is Islamist money which is coming into these, these, I don't want to call them industries, these universities, and there is Chinese money which is coming into this. Now, when this money comes, this comes with an agenda, this comes with a mission, and this comes with a motive. What we are facing is a fifth generation warfare where perceptions are built. Look, who is the target? The target is your biggest 800 million youth. Target is not possibly me or Basmati ma'am or Professor Madhunath Patsar. It is that 800 million youth who is young, whose minds are impressionable, and you want to put an image or you want to put a seed in their mind. Look, Kashmir is a dispute. Look, Kashmir should be independent. If Kashmir is independent, there will be no threat of a nuclear war. This is exactly the mission and motive. They will use all possible platforms.
And Sumit, may I insert there, if people are forgetting what's happened in Bangladesh recently, as part of a students' protest.
Yeah, Bangladesh doesn't suit their agenda. Bangladesh doesn't suit their agenda. Exodus of Kashmiri Pandits doesn't suit their agenda. What happened in Mallapuram doesn't suit their agenda. A lot of what happened in Leicester doesn't suit their agenda. I want to question them. Why don't they discuss Leicester than Kashmir? Leicester to pass mein, na? It's next door, so you don't discuss that. Because that is where the money is coming from. Look, for example, in Cornell University, they are now debating with this 2 billion of Qatari money which has flown in. They are now debating, they are doing a course on possible genocide in Gaza. I mean, that's what $2 billion can do. When, sorry to say that, when money talks, bullshit walks. That is exactly what is happening here. All platforms of influence are used to peddle this agenda to impressionable minds. There is a problem, and this problem is there. It can lead to a nuclear war. It is better, let's have this mission going on, because ultimately 20 years down the line or 10 years down the line, this chunk of voters will determine the governments of the countries. They will be the politicians. They will make the senates. They will make the IAS, IFS, IPS. They're the people who will be running the administration. So if you can implant these ideas, and even if 30-40% walk into your trap, your job is done. That is exactly why colleges, universities and all across the world are chosen. If we do not, I mean, what you are rightly doing, imagine a channel of your size on the national TV doesn't counter it. How do you expect those poor students, our kids out there, to do it? I mean, if you are countering it, I am countering it, they're doing it on social media, and if we counter it all along, and then we question the ecosystem which it allows to happen, like what you rightly said, let's have, why don't we discuss Wales? Why don't we discuss Scotland? Why don't we discuss other things? Let's have debates on them as well. And what Basmati ma'am said, let's have debates on the colonial things what you have done. Let's have discussion of the $45 trillion which you siphoned from here, which is 50% of the world GDP. Let's talk the Great Bengal famine. How many million people did you kill because of that? Let's talk about the Jallianwala Bagh, and let's also remind you the third biggest investors in UK is India. India is the third biggest investor in UK. And when you look at the trade, we are not in top 20 of your trade because your trade doesn't matter to them. Let's tell them you need us more than we need you, and let's remind them all the Alibabas of the world and include the Charlie Chores of the world. Why do they all come and live in London? If we do not counter this, ma'am, anything which is not countered for an impressionable mind, it might become truth. Even if they are able to convince 10, 20, 30% people, look at an 800 million kind of a youth power. 10, 20, 30% is good enough to topple, manage any political change 10 years down the line. It's an investment to manage the political storm 10 years down the line. That is how I see it politically.
Okay, Professor Madhav Nalapat, interesting perspective raised there. I want to understand from your point of view, sir. When we talk about then countering the narrative effectively, as Sumit said, there is some countering of the narrative on social media, there is some on news channels, but let's be real, I don't think that this that the youth which is actually who we're having this discussion for is perhaps sitting and watching a news debate today, nor are they perhaps getting it through social media, because we know that social media all works on very strong algorithms today. So when in our survey people say that the Indian government must give some sort of moral, diplomatic or other support to these ideas of a free Northern Ireland or a free Scotland or any other such ideas, how does that really work? Because truly the youth of India and pushing them to think is something that we've just neglected all throughout. We talk about transforming the education system, but we know just how poor our ability to research, read and think really is in universities and colleges here.
Well, I'd like to say that one of the bright spots for the future is our university system. And if we get students from across the world who are now looking at coming and studying in India, then I think we can rake in tens of billions of dollars the way the Australians, and I'm sorry to say the Canadians, and the UK is doing. There's no question about it. So it's a very high potential situation if it takes place. But having said that, I'd like to point out that whether it is the Oxbridge or Oxford and Cambridge or the Ivy League, even in so-called mainstream media, and mainstream media is actually fringe media. Washington Post is fringe media. It calls itself mainstream media. Ivy League universities and these other universities like Oxbridge are being debunked. Stories are now finally coming out that these are really not really very good. They're just network factories and degree factories. And because they have a prestige attached to it, that prestige is what gives value, not what they teach. In fact, a lot of what they teach is contrary to what is really needed in later life in this age of AI in the 21st century. So frankly, I don't think anyone is going to take this Oxford Union debate seriously. Anyone is going to take this so-called vote seriously. And I think it's a good idea for Indian universities to have a similar vote. But again, our youth are interested in jobs, they're interested in a good education, they're interested in ensuring that the cost of education is an affordable level, healthcare is at an affordable level, and nutrition is at an affordable level, housing is at an affordable level. Frankly, I don't believe 1 in even 999 of our youth are going to bother about what is being debated in Oxford University or let's say in Yale University in the United States. They wouldn't bother. Frankly, these talking shops have lost their importance, they've lost their relevance, and nobody takes them seriously. Now, I'm not going to go into a situation of talking in terms of white and black or whatever, because let's face it, blacks have done horrible things to people. Brown people have done horrible things. Yellow, if you call them yellow, I would like to call them black, cynic, have done horrible things. And Caucasians have also done horrible things. That's there. So I'm not going to go it in terms of color, but I'd say in terms of security. If you check the social media posts of these invitees, if you check their appearances, public appearances online, you will see the bent of mind, which is a clear bent of mind inclined towards violence, nursing a bunch of snakes. They seem to be unaware of what's going to happen. The Americans were unaware before 9/11. These guys are unaware. But I wouldn't like to use, terms like in terms of race, ethnicity, religion, language, etc. Because you have people, who transcend that. And when you talk of Sanatan Dharma is a universal thing. It's everybody's path is valid, provided it does not involve hatred of anybody else's path, and it leads very clearly, and it is also peaceful. So if you observe those tenets, then I think you're observing Sanatan Dharma. I am a genuine Sanatani. I am proud of the fact that I am of the Hindu faith, and I was born into the Hindu faith. I'm proud of that. But having said that, I'd like to say, all over the world, I'm seeing Hinduism grow. All over the world, I'm seeing, traditions such as what we thought were uniquely Hindu grow, like vegetarianism, because it's so important for avoiding climate change. So many other, traditions are now being followed, and a lot of people from different races are adopting Sanatan Dharma. So I'm not pessimistic about the future, and frankly, I care, 2 hoots, not even 2 hoots, nothing actually, for this kind of ridiculous so-called, poll that's been taken, just like 2 hoots for this kind of debate. But my warning to the British security authorities, to Prime Minister Keir Starmer is, you better check these guys out. You better check some of the those who have come here out, speakers who have come here out, and check and see if you admitted security risks into the United Kingdom, and in some cases even given them citizenship. That's what I would say, Megha. Thank you.
Absolutely. On that note, I thank all of our guests for joining us on the broadcast. That's all the time that we have. We have to slip into a very, very quick break.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.